We detect where the drone is, we detect where the pilot is. For the we mostly detect where the pilot is. Very rarely do we not.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Geeksvana. Today we're bringing you the first part of an exciting interview with Andrew McQuillan of Crowded Space Drones. Amongst other things, Andrew and his colleagues are the company of choice for many police forces and government agencies who are looking to protect events or locations from the incursion of drones being flown unlawfully. You might be very surprised just how advanced some of the systems deployed by Crowded Space Drones are. We are bringing the interview to you in parts, broken down into some key sections. Future topics include everything from local authorities' attitudes towards drones, the fascinating history behind Andrew, his colleagues and their business, including an origin story from Game of Thrones. We will be publishing the other parts of the interview very soon, so if you're new here, subscribe and hit the notification bell to find out when they go live. Today, we are going to be focusing on how they detect your drones at major events. In my conversation with Andrew today, we include a brief introduction to Crowded Space Drones and then discuss how they go about their role of detecting drone flights. Recently, PC Paul Beckwith, Chief Pilot and Flight Safety Manager for North Yorkshire Police Drone Operations, worked in partnership with Crowded Space Drones to secure public safety at York Racecourse for the Ebor Festival. The operation was due to increased safety concerns over drones being flown at racecourses this year, endangering property, the people on the ground and of course the horses. This resulted in many drone flights being identified and hobbyist pilots being spoken to, and even included PFC holders being reported to the CAA. Okay, so today we're joined by Andrew McQuillan of Crowded Space Drones. Hi Andrew, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you very much. And Andrew's come along very kindly today to speak to us about some emerging technology, but certainly the emerging use of that technology in ways that perhaps we're not quite used to yet here in the UK, which is very exciting, I believe, for the drone hobby and as a business as a whole. Could you start off by telling us a little bit about Crowded Space Drones and who you are?
Okay, so originally I came from a crowd management background, so I have a degree in crowd management, and that may sound a very strange thing to have a degree in, but there's quite a large event safety aspect nowadays in terms of regulation for events. And I did the degree in that because when I was 17, I worked a Phil Collins show, which I didn't even know who Phil Collins was, I sadly admit.
You are aging yourself a little bit there, of course.
Literally, all my job was the cable ramps, the plastic ones. I had to sit there with a torch and shine it if anyone wanted to walk over it. But it was just the whole crowd thing. I just find it fascinating. And it actually took me down this rabbit hole of dealing with big crowds. So I've dealt with crowds up to like 300,000 in terms of planning for them, delivering the event and everything. So that's very much my passion in terms of that. So when I came to creating a drone company, Crowded Space Drones was a very natural name for me to do it. I didn't have any precondition at the time when I started really in terms of what we were going to do other than do stuff around crowds. So that's where the name came from. It's been very useful name for us since.
Yes.
In public safety, because public safety then changed the term of events to crowded places. So we've been a name that sort of fits what we do for a large chunk of that. And then I happened to have an old BBC camera guy, and we sort of got him involved working for us and various different other things, and sort of grew from there. But it was very much a case of the public safety angle was what we wanted to start it for.
Okay.
All these other little bits have just come on naturally from that.
So in terms of public safety services on the drone detection side of things, which agencies and authorities do you work with?
We don't really sort of previously talked about that much, but we think that it's a good time to educate people in terms of what does and doesn't happen sort of behind the scenes, if you like, at major events. And to sort of reassure the drone community, because a lot of what we do is about sort of enabling access for drones. So we've previously worked with quite a few different police forces and government agencies and different things. It's publicly stated we had a role at Gatwick and Heathrow in terms of assisting. We work with most major sports events and different things. It's all public sort of knowledge that we do that, from Wimbledon through to Silverstone, through to football, music festivals, you name it. Our public safety services are split into two parts. There's the use of drones for public safety. So we have an OSC that pretty much allows us to fly very, very close to crowds and other various different parts of that OSC, which is akin to what some of the police forces are able to do. And we can fly there with similar aircraft and give a live downlink, and we do that for lots of things. We do that for government agencies, including local authorities, public safety agencies. It's a wide range.
Okay.
And we then have the drone detection side. So on that side, we are using a panel of different equipment because there's not one true product out there from any manufacturer that will, yes, this is it. And we use that to protect events. That's not necessarily, we're not looking to stop drone access. We're looking to stop unsafe drone access.
Yes, absolutely.
It's sort of public information that we've stopped quite a lot of large quantities of drugs coming into events, and that's not just, you expect that to be music festivals. It's actually not. You'd be surprised what events people try and bring drugs into by drone. We have, and some of that's been run by our organised crime groups that have been disrupted through what we've been engaged in. You also have people like, recently there has been a horse who has obtained injuries caused by a drone. Now, they weren't directly impacted by the drone, but the drone was sort of flown at them, causing them to obtain injuries. You've recently at one event had a drone crash into a car from height, causing very significant damage to what I believe was a very, very, very expensive car. I wouldn't like to be the insurer of that.
No, indeed.
And so there's lots of other incidents in terms of, like, I've personally witnessed a drone illegally flying at a sports event, nearly hit a helicopter. You'd be surprised what goes on there. In terms of the police and the government would rate that in terms of a safety risk to events or a terrorism risk.
Okay, and the drone detection side of things, because the tweets that were sent out by North Yorkshire police drones, which by the way is a fantastic Twitter account. If I will put a link in the description if anybody's interested in that, because they are one of the most open drone units, and they're often posting video actually from their own work and showing the fantastic good that their drones are doing in their community to back up their colleagues on the ground. But I noticed something different recently with their operation at York Racecourse to support in stopping illegal activity with drones, be that hobbyists flying them illegally or anything else. But I noticed that they were atting crowded space drones as well. So this is one of the first public times I've seen your name and the police drone Twitter account name as being mentioned in one, as it were. Obviously, as you're saying, more publicly recognising the fact that you're working together.
Yes, and it's about sort of debunking the myths, because what I'm keen to do is tell people about some of the things we've been doing to try and help drone users rather than hinder.
Yes.
But also protect. People need to be protected, at sports events, the people who are working there, because people think, the events that are going on, there's not many people there. Actually, there could be several hundred there for a sports event, or, and it just because there's no public ticket payers there doesn't mean there's not people there who can be endangered.
Absolutely.
And I think, in terms of that, as we go into next year with different EASA rules as well, it's going to change. So there might be a need for more protection, in my opinion, next year.
I agree. Completely agree with that.
People could fly a lot closer, and they may not realise. And people may not realise, they're endangering people, but they could be, and that's going to fall. They're going to follow the law without maybe unwillingly or unknowingly. So, in terms of that's the first time we've been mentioned. But actually, if you actually cryptically look at the other police drone units, you'll see us mentioning things, and we have like an education account called Lego Drone Pilot as well.
Yes.
And there's been stuff with other police forces than that one and stuff. So we do try and drop hints to an extent sometimes, but it's not really. These are not services that people typically buy in direct. And sort of we don't get emails about drone detection saying, "Can you come and do this event?" Typically, it's through need rather than want, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Typically, we would go to events where there's already a problem with drones rather than they are worried about a drone problem potentially occurring. So in terms of what we were doing at York, we had lots of drones flying illegally. We we prefer the term unlawfully because illegally there's a connotation of they knew what they were doing.
Absolutely,
they were doing, but unlawfully is just they happen to be breaking the law to some of them. One of them. We have lots of issues with hobbyists. They tell us they don't know any better, and we have to take that, especially, last year, pre the registration scheme and the testing, we had to take that at face value and say,
absolutely.
There's no mechanism to tell us you know what you're doing. But if you've taken the test now this year and you tell us you don't know what you're doing, well, the test says you should know what you're doing.
Exactly.
And not the best test in the world. But, because obviously it's 20 questions. In Europe, it's going to be 40 questions odd.
That's right.
So it's not the best test in the world, but you've done basics. And just because there's no crowd there doesn't mean it's not a congested area, or et cetera, et cetera. And we dealt with lots of people at that one, ranging from hobbyists, which was the majority.
Okay, and you're actually with your equipment, obviously, without telling us anything about the behind the curtain, as it were, of the Wizard of Oz. Well, yeah, indeed. You're actually now within a 25 kilometre range, able to tell where the drone is flying and where the pilot is. We're talking even hobbyist aircraft here. So if I were to turn up at your Racecourse, which of course I would never do, and fly my Mavic Air towards the Racecourse, that is something that your equipment can now pick up.
Yes, lots of manufacturers are now realising that drones could be, I'm not saying they are a threat, but they could be a threat. So lots of manufacturers, one of the most prominent ones is probably DJI in terms of they have a deliberate product publicly available. Other manufacturers are also working on this as well. You just may not be as overtly aware of what they're doing in terms of anti-measures.
Yes.
And you can't just go and buy some of these systems off the shelf. They're just restricted access. And we are able to detect where each system has its own quirks. So that's why we use a panel of systems in the majority of cases, because not one system is perfect at all. And there's a thing in the UK called CPNI, which tests security equipment for police and things. And they're testing for drone taxes, and no one has actually met so far when they did the testing last year, no one has actually met all the key categories we want from this. So that's why it's not just a case of using one and done.
Absolutely.
So we detect where the drone is, we detect where the pilot is. For the we mostly detect where the pilot is. Very rarely we not, or at least can't try and get where the drone came from and things like that. In terms of them, we go out and we have evidence gatherers working with police. So we are there to collect evidence in relation to air navigation order offences. That's it. We are not there to collect. The reason why they're flying is not for our purview.
Yes.
We're there to triage, because we go out to a lot of these and actually it's a PIFCO pilot, it's lawful, and we can discount it. So we're going to say, get that drone out or anything. We go say, what are you doing? Who are you? And sort of, do you have a license? Are you registered, etc., etc. Those questions allow us to triage them. Where we detect offences, North Yorkshire Police on occasion were very closely with us and dealt with those offences and things. It could be, it's up to their discretion. It's not up to us in terms of how things get dealt with. We're purely there to triage. So We're not there to actually enforce or anything. We're just there to collect evidence in terms of, and also stop you getting disturbed. If you're a PIFCO pilot or you know a sea holder doing a roof survey, and we've had this before in a restricted airspace, if you're doing that and you're lawfully doing, there's no issue and there's no threat to the event, carry on. The police won't even come near you because we've logged it. It's completely fine. And so then when offences are detected, they're dealt with by police. Now, there's a quirk in terms of if you detect a PIFCO operator flying outside their licence or contravention of the law, the police can't actually officially, it's not the police who deal with you for that. They can take your details and do all that sort of stuff at the scene, but the people who would prosecute you or deal with you is the CAA.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I'm keen to people to realise is the CAA are actually very hard working behind the scenes. Several PIFCO pilots have either been reprimanded or have their licence taken off them. That's not a public process. So unless they want to appeal it, and then the appeal becomes a public process.
Okay.
A lot of them don't want to appeal certain things because then it becomes public as who's
of course
things, which I get is commercial sensitivities and all that. But several operators have been dealt with, some quite severely in terms of because of what they were doing.
Is the first point of contact one of your personnel, or would that be a police officer would be the first person that would?
Yeah, sometimes it comes down to who's closer. You know, I mean, if everyone's not doing anything, it's not that busy, it's whoever gets there first. You know,
Excellent.
It's not a blue light response unless, you know, if we had crowds there, it might be from the police. But the crowd not being there at the moment means we can deal with things slightly slower than normal.
Yes.
And when there's a crowd there, typically roads are closed, but we can just drive through those because we've got the passes to do that and things in terms of us getting there quickly. Excellent. So we, you could come across us or police. It really doesn't, to an extent, it doesn't matter because either we both have a relationship whereby if we say it's fine as a flight, they know that that's the case. It's not.
Yes, because you have the evidence gathering system in place
that the law
that they trust.
We've dealt with this for sort of over 2 years now on this role. Excellent. So we are able to give subject expert advice, and that's sort of taken. So, I mean, sometimes, for example, I've dealt with one previously, which was a 17-year-old flying a Phantom 4 Pro. He happened to be near the event. We wasn't there because of the event, but and he wasn't flying directly overhead the event or anything. But basically, we were like, right, okay, we'll go out. We tried to find him the first day. We found him actually because the pilot left pretty quickly. He came back sort of second day, so we were able to get him again in that respect. And I spoke to him personally, and his parents were there. It was actually his parents had asked him. They just bought this property and wanted some photographs. So the parents said, right, and they thought they'd read the law correctly. So he had done the flyer ID, he had done the course, he had done operator ID, he had mapped out the 50-meter radius. He had missed completely the 150-meter radius, and also this was for a commercial project. So technically, at the moment, until EASA comes in, you need a PIFCO.
Absolutely.
But to be fair to them, I explained that to them, and they then said, right, we'll get him on a course. So he's now going on a GVC course.
Excellent.
So, it's that sort of behaviour is fantastic because the police are not going to want to deal with someone who clearly didn't know what they thought they. No,
indeed. I mean, and one of the really where I started to interact with NY Police Drones on their Twitter account in particular on this event was really to congratulate them over their use of language from the point of view that they were talking about. Everyone's the drone police, and in fact, one of our recent videos is on the American drone police, which we'll come back to. But there's a huge negativity towards the drone police, as it were, people pointing out that you're doing something wrong. But obviously, there is a public safety aspect. But what I really respected on that particular operation were the tweets that were sent out saying we've spoken to 4 hobbyists today and advised and warned and educated, and to me that's where systems and companies like yours are a huge benefit to the drone hobby, in particular for us hobbyists, because you're almost stopping us getting in trouble before we're in trouble. Yeah,
I mean that's we are pretty good, and so the police at sussing out who's there for nefarious reasons. Like your 17-year-old, exactly as you're saying, you're able to. We turned up to a Mavic flying at an event once, and subsequently turned out to be flying drugs into the event. But the operator, as soon as he saw us, and we're just like walking towards him, like we're not, a police car, we're nothing. He doesn't know us at that point. He then drops the control of the Mavic. It sort of is coming back to land by itself out of its low battery, and legs it off through the car park and hides under. I remember it hides under a bright yellow Fiat 500. Whenever we caught up, he said, "I don't know anything about a drone." We hadn't asked him any questions at this point. So it's people like that you sort of know. Yes. You're not always using it. But there's lots of people out there who are completely genuine and just completely, if you put your drone up near your event and you're not looking at the event, you may not even know it's there unless you've done your homework. That was a behind closed door event at York. Yes, it was.
Yes, especially in the current situation without the crowds.
And also the event dates for some of these sports events at the moment are completely out of sync with what they normally are. So you may not realise it's on that weekend or that day, for example. But the key thing is, what do you do when you do become aware? Some people then go, I won't fly again, and then go off, and then the next day or that afternoon you get them detected right they're flying again. And you're like, well, sorry, you were given one chance.
That's not good. Yeah.
Again, these are only slaps on the wrist type offences anyway. Realistically, it's not like people are going to jail for this in terms of.
Yes, but it's positive because that hobbyist gets to fly again. That hobbyist has a story to tell many other hobbyists of actually, You don't need, everyone talks about remote ID and everything else like that. Well, actually, there's other ways of detecting when they want to detect where you are. And that's a lot of positivity to put out there, because these people aren't being arrested and drones being taken off them, etc. They're being advised that actually what you're doing isn't the best thing in the world. But again, that's because of the panel of detection systems which you're deploying, which is getting there before something's happening, rather than us having another headline of a Mavic 2 Pro hitting a horse or something, or smashing into the buffet window or something. It's dealing with these things in a much quicker way, but in my opinion, a very positive way for the hobby, because it isn't all about criminalizing people. It isn't all about criminalizing the hobby. But this operation, and the way that it was also the way the publicity was handled, was absolutely fantastic. And I think it's hopefully will be, if it continues in that way at other events, then it's going to be something which is going to put a lot of positivity out there, because, as you say, if you're there flying genuinely and a police officer walks up to you, you're not assuming that you're in trouble. They are going to talk to you, which is huge.
They're humans too. They may just want to see what you can see from up there. I mean, a lot of them are very impressed by drone tech. They may not have seen their own forces drones, if the force even has drones.
Yes.
So like Liverpool, Merseyside Police don't have a drone unit, so we've had lots of people on public safety stuff there. Want to have a look at what's going on and what they can see from there, just out of pure interest.
There you have it, part one of what is a fascinating interview with a market-leading business. Deployment of these types of systems at events and in critical areas, with the police using that information to educate and inform hobbyists, could well swing public opinion and promote the hobby more positively. As previously mentioned, we have more coming soon on Geeksvana from my interview with Andrew, who I thank for taking the time to share this information with us. For now, fly safe and see you in the next video.
Please remember to like and subscribe.